Hello, everyone. Welcome in. This is Brian Festa, Vice President and co-founder of We the Patriots USA. I'm coming to you live today with a very important update. It looks like, okay, the live feed just started. Coming to you with a very important update about tomorrow's hearing at the Second Circuit in New York City. In case you don't know, there is a hearing to address the Milford Christian Church case that we filed against the state back in 2023 now. Believe it or not, it's been 3 years, actually just over 3 years since we filed that lawsuit in federal court. It's now at the Second Circuit finally. And why is this important? Well, obviously, we've got a lot going on in the state legislature right now. There's a very important vote today happening in the state legislature regarding vaccines, vaccine exemptions, religious freedom, HB 5044. Many of you are following that. Many of you have been working against that. Those of you in Connecticut who are watching. But the hearing tomorrow is just as important, if not more important, because this is the last piece of federal litigation, the last challenge in federal court that still is standing against the repeal of the religious exemption. What's different now, though? The federal courts have ruled on this issue before, even in one of our cases before, and ruled against us. What makes us think that we're going to be victorious now, or what gives us a better chance to win now as opposed to 2 years ago, for instance? Well, a very important case called Mahmoud v. Taylor was decided by the U.S. Supreme Court last year. As you might recall, that was the case of a group of Maryland parents who brought a lawsuit, who sued their school district because the school was not allowing them to opt out of LGBTQ curriculum for their children. So the parents brought a lawsuit. The Supreme Court ultimately ruled in favor of the parents, saying that their First Amendment right, their religious freedom, doesn't end at the schoolhouse door. It follows them into the classroom. In fact, the Supreme Court said it would be a hollow right. It wouldn't be much of a right, religious liberty, that is, wouldn't be much of a right if it didn't follow you into, or follow the child into, a public school classroom. More recently, this year, in Mirabelli v. Bonta, a case out of California filed against the California Attorney General's office, the Supreme Court ruled that California's policy to hide gender transition also violated the Constitution, to hide it from the parent, to say that staff had to keep it secret from the parents and had to aid these children in the gender transitions in the school and keep that secret from the parents, even when the parents had a religious objection. The Supreme Court said that also, in citing Mahmoud, also violates the First Amendment, freedom of religion. So, that is another case just recently. Again, not even in less than a year, because Mahmoud was decided last June of last year. So Mirabelli was decided just this year. So those are two cases close together that decided the parents do have religious liberty rights under the First Amendment in a school setting. And just this year as well, third case I'm going to mention today is was the Amish schools case. You may remember that it's Miller v. McDonald is the case. And in January of this year, the U.S. Supreme Court remanded that case back down to the Second Circuit. Yes, the very same Second Circuit that we will be standing before tomorrow, to issue a new decision in a school vaccine exemption case. In that case, the state of New York had levied heavy fines against 3 Amish community schools because they continued to allow religious exemptions for school vaccinations, even after the state had abolished those exemptions in 2019. The Supreme Court in Miller remanded the case back to the Second Circuit and directed them to apply the Mahmoud v. Taylor case, the Maryland schools case I just told you about, to apply that in the school vaccine context. Our hearing tomorrow has nearly identical facts. Milford Christian Church has the Little Eagles daycare and preschool. And in 2023, the state threatened to shut down the daycare and preschool because Little Eagles continued to honor religious exemptions even after the state had abolished them in 2021. So we have a nearly identical fact pattern. In our case, will actually be the first case to come before the Second Circuit since the Supreme Court issued that remand in the Miller case. So for the very first time, the Second Circuit is going to be faced with a school vaccine case after post-Mahmoud, post-Mirabelli, and will have to apply those cases, or at the very least Mahmoud, to the school vaccine exemption context. So we didn't have this before. So in a nutshell, I know that was a lot in the last 5 minutes that I just threw at you, but in a nutshell, the reason things are different now is that Mahmoud v. Taylor and Mirabelli v. Bonta have been issued. Those decisions have been issued by the Supreme Court within the last year. And so that changes everything. That's changed the landscape. Those cases were very strong in favor of parental rights and religious liberty for parents and children, even in a school, even in a public school classroom. These cases involve, of course, private schools, religious schools. But, this would be a very dangerous precedent if the court were to say that the state can shut down a school, can come in and attack a school, can punish a school for holding fast to their religious beliefs. This is a religious school. This is run by a church, Milford Christian Church. Pastor Jim Loomer is one of the plaintiffs in the case, who's the pastor at Milford Christian and oversees the school as well. Do we really want to live in a society that says the state can dictate what a religious institution can believe, can teach, can practice? This is the practice of their faith. Refusing these vaccinations is in accordance with their sincerely held, deeply held religious convictions. And for the state to come in and say, we're going to shut you down unless you force these children to be vaccinated against your beliefs and against the beliefs of the families in question, is just absolutely horrendous. It's dystopian. And it's something that we must absolutely do everything in our power to stop. We cannot let this be the precedent. This is why we filed this lawsuit. We couldn't stand idly by and see the state attacking a religious institution, whether you agree with the religion or not. You might be of a different faith. All right. You may not attend Milford Christian Church. Probably most of you watching here don't. Some of you may. But most of you watching here don't. That's neither here nor there. This is about religious liberty for all of us. What if the state comes after your church or your child's private school, religious school, and says, no, they have to believe a certain way? All right. They have to, today it's vaccines. Tomorrow it could be something different. The state is dictating what that church and what that religious school can believe and what kind of faith they can practice, how they can practice their faith. This is a huge case. If we are victorious at the Second Circuit, obviously that would apply in Connecticut, but it would also apply in New York, all right, because the Second Circuit oversees Connecticut, New York, and Vermont. Those are the states within the Second Circuit's jurisdiction. If we lose the Second Circuit, we will definitely be appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court for review. And the U.S. Supreme Court has indicated just recently in that Miller v. McDonald Amish schools case that I just told you about, that they do want Mahmoud to be applied to the school vaccine cases. So if the Second Circuit doesn't apply it in a way that the Supreme Court agrees with, if the Supreme Court does not agree with their reasoning, they could very well take this up. I'm not saying it's a guarantee that they will, but I think if the Second Circuit rules in a way that's opposite the majority thinking on the U.S. Supreme Court, then there would be a very good chance that this case would be heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. So please pray for us. Please also show up if you can. We're asking for a large presence in the courtroom, respectful, peaceful presence, but it is a public hearing, so anyone can attend from the public. If you support religious freedom, if you support health freedom, if you support parental rights, and if you support the parents and families of Milford Christian Church, then please show up tomorrow if you can in New York. It's at 40 Foley Square. That's the Thurgood Marshall Federal Courthouse in New York City. It's in Manhattan. Show up, show your support just by being there. You don't say anything. Obviously, you're not going to be participating in the hearing, but just as an audience member in the gallery, show up just by your presence and show your support. If you can't show up, please listen. There's a live link. I can post it in the comments here, but we also sent out an email today with that link. We'll remind everybody again tomorrow morning. It's tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time in New York, 40 Foley Square. Either show up or listen. There's a live stream link or live stream audio link that you can listen to tomorrow. And also, if you're able to support us with a gift, with a financial contribution, we'd greatly appreciate that. We have had to pay for all of the legal expenses, all of the court costs, all of the associated expenses with bringing a lawsuit since 2023 in this case. So we're talking about 3 years now of litigation that we've had to pay for. Any of you that have ever filed a lawsuit or ever hired an attorney for anything know that that's not cheap. There's a great expense that comes with that. So we don't charge our clients money. We haven't charged Milford Christian 1 cent for this. We have fully funded this, but we're only able to continue doing that with your support. So you can go to wethepatriotsusa.org and you can make a gift to support our mission. We have a Mission 250 fund right now going on. There's our website. The Mission 250 fund is our goal of raising $250,000 by July 4th of this year, because July 4th of this year, of course, is our nation's 250th birthday. It also happens to be our 6th birthday here at We the Patriots USA. But that aside, it's our nation's 250th birthday, which is the big celebration. And so we have launched Mission 250 to raise $250,000 by July 4th. So if you can contribute to that, we'd greatly appreciate it, because we have not only this lawsuit, we just argued last Friday, just a few days ago, in Pasadena, California, at the Ninth Circuit for a school religious exemption case. We have other pending litigation across the United States dealing with parental rights and religious freedom. We have free speech cases. We even take up Second Amendment cases. So we have a lot of litigation all throughout the country from coast to coast. That's very, very expensive. So $250,000 may sound like a lofty goal, but when you consider legal fees, even just for one lawsuit, can be 50, 60, 70,000 easily. 250 suddenly doesn't sound like a whole lot when you're filing, dozens of lawsuits really over the last several years. And, going forward, our goal is really to have dozens of lawsuits filed every year. We're not quite at that level yet, but we would like to have dozens of lawsuits filed every single year. So that would be a good start, raising $250,000 to propel us so that we could file some more of these lawsuits, because these battles are unfolding everywhere. Just about a week and a half ago, April 8th, I think it was, there was a decision issued in West Virginia, or it was actually at the Fourth Circuit in Richmond, Virginia, but it was concerning West Virginia's bid, or parents in West Virginia, their bid to get a religious exemption to school vaccines there, because West Virginia's never had one. So they had challenged that West Virginia's denial of religious exemptions in federal court, and that went to the Fourth Circuit. Unfortunately, the Fourth Circuit ruled against them. So that's a very bad precedent there, and we're hoping that we can get a good precedent here. West Virginia, obviously was aware of what's happening at the Second Circuit and the Ninth Circuit and elsewhere, but they saw it one way. We're hoping the Second Circuit sees it another way, and we will do our best to argue vigorously for the parents and the church, Milford Christian Church, in this case tomorrow. So please, please, please stay tuned for updates, listen live, attend if you can, make a gift if you can, and most of all, pray for us. Pray for us that we can be successful, because this is going to impact everyone. I don't see any comments coming in right now, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to stay on for another minute or two to answer any questions you have. But I know there was a lot of legal stuff at the beginning of this broadcast to unpack, and I know not everybody watching is a lawyer or is really familiar with how the judicial system works. It's confusing, right? Because there's decisions coming out of California and Virginia and Connecticut, New York. There's lower court decisions, there's circuit court decisions, there's Supreme Court decisions that I mentioned. And obviously Supreme Court decisions are binding on the whole nation, which is why it's so important that we have the Supreme Court precedent now, and we are going to be arguing on the basis of that recent precedent. So you will hear, if you're listening tomorrow, the thrust of our legal argument will be there's new precedent at the Supreme Court. We have this new precedent, Mahmoud, Mirabelli, this new precedent, which says that parents have a right to religious liberty, even in a classroom setting. whether it's public school or even, in this case, a religious school. Certainly, the state cannot be attacking a religious institution. The state cannot be telling a religious institution that it's doing it wrong, it's practicing its faith wrong. No, this is absolutely abominable that the state would even attempt to do that, to fine a school or to try to shut down a school simply because they're practicing their faith in accordance with their beliefs. So somebody has a comment here. Just able to join, but we're desperate in California to protect our children from the vaccine mandates. Do you see the Connecticut results will impact other states as well? Absolutely, because this isn't really just a Connecticut hearing. This is a hearing in New York City at the Second Circuit. So that would apply to Connecticut and New York and Vermont. Vermont has a religious exemption, but Connecticut and New York do not. So this would apply. This would be a huge decision if we won there. Or if we don't win there, again, we would appeal it to the U.S. Supreme Court. And of course, whatever decision the U.S. Supreme Court makes is going to be binding on all the states. So yes, it would absolutely be binding on California. So watch this case closely, because the track this case takes is going to be very important. And even if we win at the Second Circuit and we don't have to appeal to the Supreme Court, that could help California, because California has the cases. Ours was one of three cases, one of three school vaccine cases that was argued before the Ninth Circuit. We had an attorney out there in Pasadena arguing for We the Patriots. We the Patriots USA versus Ventura Unified School District, Ventura, California. We were just arguing that case. And there were two other school vaccine cases too that were being argued on the same day in the same hearing, or the same calendar, the same day before the same panel of judges at the Ninth Circuit. They're watching what's happening here too. Obviously, if the Second Circuit issues a decision before they issue their decision, that could influence them. They would likely cite the Second Circuit's ruling in their decision and either distinguish it or follow it. Either they'll say, well, things are different here, and this is why we're choosing not to follow the Fourth Circuit, the Second Circuit, or they could agree with either the Fourth Circuit and or the Second Circuit and tie that to their decision. So yes, circuit courts are heavily influenced by other circuit courts. Are they binding? No. Only the Supreme Court precedent and the Ninth Circuit's own precedent could be binding. The Ninth Circuit, of course, could reverse its own precedent. Can't reverse the Supreme Court precedent. Supreme Court precedent is binding on the Ninth Circuit as well as the Second Circuit, Fourth Circuit, all of the circuits. But that being said, if you read the circuit court decisions, they very often, almost always, cite what's happened in other courts, especially when it's a new, like a novel issue, a first impression. If there's a new legal argument, they'll say, well, how have other circuit courts dealt with this? Let's look at what other courts around the country, because we haven't dealt with this yet. So it's only natural that's where they would look. If it's something the Supreme Court has not directly addressed, same thing. They'll see, well, what have other courts done? Lower federal courts and especially circuit courts. If there's been rulings, they'll look to those and they'll cite those. Good question. Anything else? Any other questions before I wrap here today? I don't want to keep this too long because you're going to be able to listen to the argument tomorrow. We sent out an email. We've made Facebook and X posts about it. Now I'm doing this live stream about it. So I think that's enough. We don't have to, I don't have to just stay on here just to keep talking, but this is a really important hearing, guys. I know, especially those of you listening in Connecticut, you're focused on the legislature today, and rightly so. But tomorrow, turn the page. Your focus should instantly be turned to court, because it's a huge federal hearing to deal with your religious exemptions in Connecticut, and it will affect religious exemptions in New York as well, this decision. So, and possibly the whole country if we take it to the Supreme Court. So again, absolutely keep your eye on this. Follow us online on socials, on Facebook, We the Patriots USA, at WT Patriots USA on X, as well as everywhere else. Sign up for our email list, wethepatriotsusa.org. Make a contribution if you can, because this is costing us a lot of money. We've spent many thousands of dollars on just this one lawsuit, let alone the other religious exemption lawsuits we filed in Connecticut and in New York over the past years, and in California just recently. The one I told you about, we were just arguing last Friday. That's a lot of money, okay? And most of it's going out. There's a lot more money going out than coming in, unfortunately, these days. The economy is not great. Gas prices, food prices are skyrocketing. I get it, but we won't be able to continue operating, continue fighting these battles if we don't have more money coming in, because I can't just sit here and write checks all day and expect this to continue. Eventually, the well dries up and we have to go home. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep fighting these fights. I want to fight these battles as long as humanly possible, but that's only made possible with your support. So please consider a gift, and please pray for us as well. Prayer is so powerful. If you can't make a gift right now, maybe later, but what you can do is you can pray. It doesn't cost you anything. Okay. Please keep us in your prayers tomorrow and going forward in the future. God bless you all. And again, we will keep you updated.